Hey everyone, I'm Mind, and this is set number 70736, Attack of the Morro Dragon from the Ninjago Possession wave back in 2015. This set contains 658 pieces, 6 minifigures, and originally retailed for $69.99 in the US. This video is of course a part of my Ninjago throwback review series, so let me know in the comments which set you want to see a throwback review on next. It could be any set from 2011 to 2018, and while I don't have them all, I do have a lot of them, so let me know in the comments which set you want to see most, and I may select it for the next Ninjago throwback review. This one was definitely a suggestion from the audience. It's been one of the most requested sets ever. However, it's not one I bought in 2015, so I had to get this one in the aftermarket, but I know there was a lot of desire to see this review. If you want to see which throwback reviews I've already done, I'll have a full playlist in the description as well. But now, with all that being said, let's get into the review. So here's the Morro Dragon, and this thing was revolutionary for the time. Like, this set was a really big deal. So it's very interesting to look back at, especially when comparing it to modern dragons. I think the thing about this set that stood out to a lot of people is the very curved shape to the body. That does a great job of representing the element of wind and also the fact that this is a ghost dragon. And it does look super cool, makes it feel very serpent-like. The wings too look amazing and they're like tattered, which again is something we have seen since then, but this was very new at the time. So yeah, this is a set a lot of people were very excited for and I heard very good things about back in 2015. Now, of course, 2015 was, what, 9 years ago at this point? Wow. So obviously, LEGO has evolved and changed a lot since then, and even though Ninjago's still around, their design philosophies have changed a lot too. So let's take a more up-close look at this set to see every little bit of it. So starting at the head of the dragon, this is, of course, brick-built, and there's really not one right answer as to whether brick-built heads or molded heads are better. Early Ninjago used molded heads, and then they switched to brick-built heads for a while, but then in modern Ninjago, most dragons nowadays do have molded heads again, and I can see the benefits to both. The brick-built heads do feel more LEGO-like because you're actually constructing something, and it does help each dragon actually feel more unique, because no two heads are the same shape, like they are entirely their own thing. That being said, the modern molded heads have a lot more life to them, the creature feels more real. Well, I don't know, this maybe feels a little bit more lifeless, but again, that's totally down to personal preference. Some people will agree, some people will disagree, and I understand both sides of the conversation. In terms of the actual head here, I don't know, I think it's actually probably the weakest part of this dragon. I think the body is super cool and the wings are super cool. The head, though, I think is just alright. I do like the stickers used on it, such as on the jaw right here. It's got like this sort of ghostly rift design, and you can see that's on both sides. There's like a claw or like a hair or something coming off the chin. This is actually a little bit weird. I'm not a huge fan of that part. Just feels a little bit out of place to me. I don't really know what its purpose is, but I suppose it does add to like the spooky unnatural feel. The elemental blade pieces for texturing are quite cool, and those are used in a few different places in this set, and definitely do fit the ghost vibes. And I love having these big blades on the back in spring green. That's a color for that piece that came in a few sets for this wave, but then I think never again. But it does look really cool, and I think it fits well for horns. But I do think the overall face here is a little bit blocky. Like, the head is super rectangular and maybe even a little bit too big for the size of this body. I would have liked maybe if it had been scaled down a little bit more, but that's the thing with brick-built heads. You want a certain level of detail, but obviously the more detail you want, you might have to get a little bit bigger, so it sometimes leaves things looking awkward. I don't think it's bad by any means, and it definitely looks cool sometimes, but I don't know, especially compared to modern dragons, personally I do prefer the molded heads. There's just more life to them. The head connects onto the neck on a rigid technic joint, so you're able to move it up, move it down. You do have to make sure the horns don't get in the way of the body, but there's a decent range of motion there, and then you can also swivel it from side to side, which allows you to get more personality out of the dragon, and that's something that I do appreciate. And yeah, of course, as I mentioned, the jaw can hinge open, and I do love the transline grin in the mouth. That's used in a few places of this build, but it looks absolutely fantastic. That's a very interesting color where, like, sometimes it looks really ugly, or sometimes it can look really good depending on the build, and this is a set where it's absolutely done right. I adore how it's incorporated. Speaking of that color, they use it again for these spectral chains that come to the seat, and that's of course the throne for Morro to sit on. There is a place to place the chains down, which I do like, as you can see right here, but if you want, you can remove them and place them in Morro's hands as well, so that way he's actually holding onto the chains to control the dragon, and that looks quite cool too. The actual design of the throne is very fun. I like the ghostly spider web with the spider coming down, and the little horns at the top that match Morro's weapon. And you can change how this is angled a little bit, just to change how it's displayed. I like those options. This is really great. Now the wings, as I mentioned before, look amazing. These are just giant cloth pieces, and I want to say this was one of the first Ninjago dragons to use cloth wings? Or was it the first? Right, because the titanium dragon came out earlier in the year, and he didn't have them. And before that, it was the Ninja mech dragon. And then, of course, the next year we had Lloyd's green energy dragon, which used them. But yeah, unless I'm forgetting something, I believe this was the first Ninjago dragon to use cloth wings, and I have to say it was a great start. The different colors used here look amazing. I like the sort of gradient that goes on here too. It goes from a dark blue to a lighter green, and then of course we have the spring green on the tips. The little gaps in the wings make it feel super ghostly, and as I said, also do fit the element of wind. This is definitely more of a ghost dragon than it is a wind dragon, but there are still some wind elements here. The two do fit together quite well, and yeah, this just looks amazing. The wings connect on ball joints, so there's a huge range of motion. You can move them forward, move them back, spin them all the way around, and move them up. Lots of different ways to pose and display this this dragon. The underside of the wing doesn't look particularly good, but it's also not bad. It's light and it's functional, and it keeps the wing piece on, so I think it's perfectly fine. So yeah, I've got to say, the wings are probably one of the coolest parts of this dragon. Now, taking a closer look at the body, you can see there's a stickered piece up here, again with those ghostly rifts coming through. A few clips on the side where you can hold Morro's weapon while he's actually riding on the dragon. That's something that I very much appreciate. And then this body, which I talked about earlier, looks so cool. Is it up to modern design standards? Probably not. The biggest thing is actually this piece right here. That's a very easy modification to make that look better, but those studs feel really out of place. Same with these couple studs right here, but that's definitely worse. So I think that is an example of how LEGO's evolved over time, because this doesn't feel entirely organic, but even still, the shape's very impressive for 2015, and does still hold up to an extent today. But yeah, that one awkward plate's probably the only thing I'd really change about this if I was designing this. It just doesn't feel right. The tail at the back is perfect. I love how easy it is for it to curve. You can see there's two rigid hinges that connect directly to the body, so you can move it up and move it down, but then every other section of the tail's on a ball joint, so you can move them side to side, as well as up and down more. So you could curve the tail to stick with the flow of the dragon's body, or you could do whatever else you want with it. And then it's got two more of those blades on the end, which, as I mentioned, I absolutely love. And finally, for the Morro Dragon, let's take a look at the legs. I like how in the section where they connect onto the body, they use some of that translime green, and you can see there's also a lot of the translime green used on the actual legs, and I think that's a great transition between the body and the legs. And the translime green really makes the legs pop. Now, this piece that they use for the legs, on any other dragon, I would say it feels weird, maybe a little inorganic, because it has gaps in it. But this isn't a normal dragon, this is a ghost dragon. And I think for a ghost dragon, this actually fits really well. Because yeah, it is gappy and inorganic, but it fits like the wispy, tattered vibes that everything else has going on, like such as on the wings. And I think that looks incredible. Once again, there's elemental blade pieces coming off the back too, and I think that does a great job to show like the speed of the dragon, like it's flying through the air. And there's little teeth coming off the feet, as well as more of those spike pieces like are used on the chin and on the cheeks. Every leg's exactly the same, except for, of course, the ones on the opposite sides are mirrored, but they all connect on with these rigid tectic joints, so there's a pretty huge range of motion there. You can very easily fold up the legs to have it fly through the air, or you could attempt to put the dragon in a walking pose instead. The front legs are a little bit restricted by the wings at the top, because of course they can't move any higher than that, so there's a little more motion on the back legs, but both are absolutely more than fine. The posability on the dragon I think is fine overall. The legs are a little bit small compared to the size of the body, and especially the size of the head, so it does make the build a little more top heavy, and the feet are rather small as well, but you can get in a walking pose like this. You do need 3 feet touching the ground at least somewhat. I have 2 completely touching the ground right here, 1 completely up and then 1 somewhat up, but yeah, I think that's more than fair for a build like this. And of course I have to show it with its legs folded up while it's flying. And this does of course look very cool. It reminds me a lot of the scenes in Possession where this dragon is actually flying through the air. They did a great job of making the set match the show version of this. So overall I'd say I'm fairly happy with this dragon. It was obviously monumental for the time, the cloth wings were amazing, and just the shape of the body is really incredible. There's a few things I'd change nowadays just because there's new LEGO pieces introduced and design standards have changed. But honestly, my biggest criticisms of the build are the head. I think the head's way too big and maybe a little bit too blocky, even though it does still look cool from some angles. And then that one little weird piece in the middle of the body, but honestly that's not too big of a deal. All around I think this is a fantastic build, and especially for 2015 this is really impressive. But of course that's not everything in this set, so now let's take a look at the side builds, then the minifigures, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts on everything. So the first side build in this set is this little terrain build of Cloud Kingdom, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know this was actually here, because of course I didn't get this set back in 2015, and I guess I never really looked too closely at the side build, but yeah, this is 100% Cloud Kingdom, which is really cool to see that was included in a set. The actual build's not too crazy. I do like all the gold and the white. I think that's very pretty looking. You get these golden spears for detailing, these torches on the side, and then barrels inside which have another golden spear as well as a golden katana, and I think that's just great for play. It's always good to include extra accessories, so especially for kids playing with this build, that's amazing. Oh, and something kind of interesting, these all lanterns or whatever at the front, those are actually glow in the dark, which is strange to see because those are the only glow in the dark parts in the entire set, I'm pretty sure, aside from some minifigure accessories, which we will get to in a moment. That definitely wasn't needed, but it is a neat inclusion. I appreciate it. And then of course in the center right here, that is the realm crystal, which is just a standard LEGO blue gem piece, but I don't know, it's very nice to see that officially included in a set, and it's in this nice little display case. The walls of Cloud Kingdom can hinge a little bit. You can move them back like this or in like this, and here's how that looks from the front. So all around, I'm fairly happy with this side build. Could there have been more to it? Yes, absolutely. But obviously, this is not the main focus of this set, and it's clear what it's supposed to be. So I'm all around glad it's here. And then the final 2 side builds in the set are pretty much identical. They're just recolors with slightly different stickers, and they're these little flyers for Jay and Kai. These are simple, but honestly really cool. I love this. And honestly, I would like to see more of this from Ninjago. Just tiny little vehicles for the ninja. It's something I feel like we don't get as often anymore. The last one I can think of is in the island. Zane had that tiny little boat. But yeah, it's nice to see a vehicle for the ninja that isn't massive. And it's sleek too, the swords give this a really nice look, and of course you have the ninja's original symbol at the front, and that's the same for each of them though, of course they're blue and red, and you can have the minifigure stand on these jumper plates. It's only a couple of parts, but it makes the display more interesting, and it's just more fun for play. These are a genuinely great inclusion. And yeah, these back parts are on mini ball joints, which if you want to move them around you can. I guess move those swords out to be weapons, but personally I think it looks best just to have them static like this. And I'll move on to the actual minifigures in this set in just a moment, but first I want to take a look at the two Skreemers that come in this set. These guys came in tons of sets this wave, and they're essentially just smaller ghosts. And in the show, they really weren't used for too much. I think they really were just Soul Archer's arrows, right? Did we see any others beyond that? But I think these guys are a lot more fun in the sets than they were in the show. For one, despite just being a single part, they do have two clips on them so they can hold on to two accessories. So this one comes with an axe and a hot dog, and this one comes with a banana and a stick of dynamite. The two do have very different expressions. This one's grimacing and this one's, well, screaming. But I love these guys when I was younger. I thought it was so cool, like a nice extra way to add more villains to a set without including entire full minifigures. But the absolute coolest part about these guys is the fact that they fit onto a minifigure's head. So that way you represent the minifigure getting possessed by the Screemer. And this definitely looks very silly, right? This isn't how Kai would look possessed in the show, but this very much was something for the sets, not the show. And I think that's a great thing for play. It reminds me of LEGO Alien Conquest, which is a theme from when I was a little bit younger. I think it was 2012, I want to say. By 2015, I was less into playing with LEGO and was more into collecting. But yeah, 2012 Alien Conquest, I was definitely still playing, and they had a very similar mechanic where there was an alien that could latch onto a minifigure's head, and that was my absolute favorite thing in those sets. I thought that was just so much fun. So it's cool to see that the Skreemers did a similar thing, and the fact that you get so many of them in so many sets too. I don't believe either of these guys are exclusive to this set, but still very nice to have in a collection, and I think they fit well here. I'm quite happy with them. So here are the first two full minifigures in this set. We have Deepstone J and Deepstone Kai. The Deepstone suits are some of the coolest ever made. They're of course one of the few suits that use black as the main color, the ninja's main color is the secondary color, and it's always very, very neat when they do that. The other ones were like Skybound and Kimono, and I guess for some of the ninja movie, but Deepstone's definitely the suit that leans the hardest into it in that they're almost entirely black with just colored detailing. And while I wouldn't say they're my favorite, I do think they look really, really good, and especially at the time they were amazing. I'm getting a little ahead of myself though. First talking about their accessories, they of course both come with katanas around the back, one black katana and one gold katana, which is kind of interesting. The black katana is not nearly as common as the gold is, so that's kind of nice to get. But then more interestingly, they both come with Aeroblades. Jay is the yellow Aeroblade and Kai is the red Aeroblade, which were sort of the collectibles in this wave. I mean, they were, but they didn't have any exclusive parts to them, so it was very easy just to make the ones you are missing with your own parts. But even still, it's nice to get these here. I believe technically this is my first time at the very least getting the yellow one. Not sure if I already had the red one. And it does obviously fit these characters well because it matches their elements. But yeah, looking at the full suits, they are spectacular. I maybe wish the gold was a little bit more vibrant on the torso because it does seem a little bit muted. I guess muted is fine, but I don't know, I think the vibrant gold would have really popped. I like how they have little weapons tucked into their belts, and you can see the two suits are nearly identical as well aside from those weapons, which is neat to see because not every ninja suit does that, but I think the uniformity of these is really to their strength. These hoods were also amazing for the time. They were like the ZX hoods, but they were dual molded, and still are probably up there as one of the best ninja hoods ever. I definitely prefer these to the legacy hoods, though the new mech suit hoods I actually might like better than these. I don't know, we'll have to see over time if the mech suit hoods ever get used again. Around the back, of course, the ZX armor in black, and that's holding onto the swords which we just looked at, and here's how the two minifigures look with their armor removed. You can see they both have their original symbols back there, which I'm very happy to see those. I honestly wish the newer suits would still use them. They're just so iconic to me, and I think they look amazing. As well as a couple of metallic silver hooks, which are kind of interesting. And then around the front, there's a better look at the torso prints as well as the face prints, and the face prints are of course just their original ones, so no, not very good. 2015 was kind of the last year before they really started updating them, but yeah, it's just what it was at the time. So all around pretty cool ones. I'm happy they were included in this set. Now moving to the villains, here are the first two in this set, two just generic ghosts. Technically they're called Hackler and Cowler, but they're just a combination of parts that are also used in other sets. There's nothing about these guys that make them unique. I have to say, I really do like the generic ghost design. The transparent head especially, as well as the transparent legs, are amazing. And on the figure on the right, this hood piece is so cool. It's trans lime green at the back, so light shines through it, so that way even from the front you can see the eyes on top of the transparent head. That looks absolutely incredible. Very unique design technique, and does the perfect job of capturing that like ghostly vibe. They both have scabbards around the back, which are the Deadpool scabbards. These were also used in tournament sets in 2015, but they were relatively new to Ninjago. Obviously, they've been used in other themes, but they were nice to get here. And it is great to get so many different accessories for these figures. But in terms of their main accessories, one is like this long brick-built spear, and the other has this double-sided blade. And as you heard me mention earlier, yeah, these are glow-in-the-dark as well. Which again, totally unnecessary. I don't think that needed to be included, but just makes these guys feel extra special. It's only a total of 3 parts, right? Just those cone pieces, but certainly fits the vibes of Possession. Possession, and feels super ghostly. I adore that. But yeah, the transparent legs are amazing, and it goes with the torso pieces. The torsos are slightly different between the two of them, but they are just two of the generic torso designs. And then removing the scabbards and the masks and everything, there's a look at their face prints. Same face print between the two of them. Of course, just a generic ghost face. I like the sort of vampire teeth, that's fun. And there's no alternate face, because that wouldn't really make sense with the transparent head. Cool design around the back, though, with like the ghostly yin yang. And you can see it's slightly different between the two of them because they are different torsos, but of course very similar designs. Overall, the ghosts were probably one of the coolest just generic villains ever made. We've had some quite good ones over the years, but I don't know, these guys do really stand out to me, and the fact that you got so many of them in sets was amazing. Couldn't be happier with them. But if you're not a fan of generic villains, we also do get two named villains in the set as well. So here we have Master Wrayth with a ghost tail, as well as possessed Lloyd, which is of course a Morro possessing Lloyd's body. Wrayth is of course one of the ghost generals, and he does have a quite cool design. He's all about chains, so he's got like these chains wrapping around his torso, and you see that continues all the way around the back, and that is metallic, and he has a sort of metallic scarf hanging down too, which that's very unique. I absolutely love that. His hood piece is used on a couple different ghost figures, but that doesn't make it bad by any means. Honestly, kind of good just generic ninja hood. I'm surprised they didn't reuse it in other colors in future waves. I guess it is maybe a little bit tattered, but I don't know, I think it would have worked. And underneath the hood you can see he's just got like wraps over his face, which that's not a transparent head, so it is able to have a back head print, but it's a very different look for the ghost. I like it a lot. And then of course he comes with his ghost tail here. Now something interesting about the ghost journals is in some sets they have their tails, some sets they had legs, so that way there was two variants of each of them. The tails certainly look very cool, but the legs do have printing on them, so I'm not sure which of the two I prefer. I think in general I do prefer the legs, but it's nice that there's two different options. And then in terms of accessory, he has like this blade on a chain, sort of similar to Jay's like season 11 weapon, but that of course uses the ghost blade piece, which is another amazing part from this wave. And then finally, coming to the most exciting figure in this set, we have possessed Lloyd. Now this is one of the coolest figures in Ninjago ever. The level of detail is incredible, just the idea behind it's incredible. The main character possessed by the enemy, very kind of like freaky concept, but they did an amazing job with the design. The hood and armor are two separate pieces, but the hood's like extra big so it fits over top of the armor. And there's so much texture to that, like so much more than you expect from a standard LEGO minifigure. It almost feels custom, like that is genuinely amazing. And if we take the upper hood piece off, you can see the full armor as well as the face print. The armor is used in dark blue on other figures, but the green is exclusive to this guy. And it just fits so well. I like how it's almost sort of dripping down the torso. It's got a very supernatural feel to it. And you can see it's similar, but still different around the back. The face print is very reminiscent of Lloyd, but now he's got shadows around his eyes, and of course it's on spring green. And it does a great job of combining both characters' designs, because I can see both Lloyd and Morro in this face. I think it was smart too to make this a solid head and not a transparent one, because even though the transparent heads are really cool, this makes the actual expression pop a lot more, and also makes more sense for a possessed character. And then finally, taking the armor piece off, you can see a full look at the torso, and man, look at that, that's so cool. So they are riffing on the Deepstone robes, because of course that's what suit like Lloyd was wearing when he got possessed, but that emblem of the rest of the ninja have in the middle has been split open, and there's this green energy surrounding it, and then the entire suit's dark green instead of black, just to show that like, yeah, that's not Lloyd anymore. Around the back too, Lloyd still has his dragon symbol, but the dragon's almost been like brought to life with these evil green eyes, and then you can see there's like ripples in the clothing around it, and it's so much more prominent than it is on the other ninja suits. This is such a cool figure, like genuinely up there in the best of all time for me. Even with the armor pieces removed, like this figure alone looks amazing, but with them on, man, that's another level. What a fantastic minifigure design, and the fact that this was 2015 too, one of the best ones Ninjago has ever done. So impressed by it to this day. Also, he's got this really cool accessory with a giant hook. And so, what are my overall thoughts on this set? Well, one thing I haven't touched on yet is the price, and when this came out, it retailed for $70. And I won't lie to you guys, there's a reason why I didn't buy this set back in 2015. When I was a kid, I thought $70 sounded ridiculous for this. That being said, this set's very difficult to get on the aftermarket now. It goes for about $240 new. So in comparison, 70 doesn't sound so bad. But yeah, I think if this was 60 when it came out, it would have been a perfect set. But now actually having it in hand, 70 doesn't feel as bad as I thought it was back then. I feel like I wasn't grasping the minifigure selection and the side builds back then. I was only looking at the dragon, and the dragon alone does feel like $60. But the fact that you get 6 minifigures, 8 if you count the Skreemers, and a fairly substantial side build of Cloud Kingdom, and not to mention the minifigures themselves are amazing, like especially Possessed Lloyd. That's an incredible figure to get, and this was the cheapest way to get him. It was far from the best price set ever, but it also wasn't bad. So would I recommend that you guys pick up this set today? Well, I mean, as I said, the price on this one is incredibly high on the aftermarket, so that's entirely up to you if you're willing to pay that much. I will say I parted this out with without the Kai, Lloyd, or Jay minifigures for about retail, because a lot of the value in this set is that Lloyd minifigure is worth a ton of money nowadays. But yeah, I was able to get all the parts as well as the other ghosts for about $70, and I'm fairly happy with my purchase. So if you don't care as much about the minifigures, that's an option you have. But yeah, for sets like this that are years old and that people love, there's no way you're gonna find it for a super good price. So it's just entirely up to how much you want to pay. I do think the set itself is very good though, especially for the time. It's not perfect, like as I said, I'm not the biggest fan of the head on the dragon, but all things considered, it's pretty great. And all around, it's one that I'm very happy to finally have in my collection. But of course, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think of this set in the comments below. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, make sure to let me know in the comments which Ninjago set you want to see a throwback review on next. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!